Good morning, Sam, Laura, everybody else there at Blueprint. Thank you for taking the time to watch my sample instructional video. My name is Andrew McDonald. I'm a practicing attorney here in the state of Washington, Seattle area. I'm in Everett, just north of Seattle. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about my practice and about my journey through the LSAT. And then I'll move on to some tips and teaching the logic problem you guys had. I've spent the last few years practicing Social Security disability law, and what that really means to me is helping clients understand and convey what their disabilities are in a legal context so that they're credible to a judge, because people don't talk about these things the same way that the law does. And it's all about teaching them how to focus, how to talk about what's important, how to talk about the information that will help them meet the standard, as opposed to all the chaff. And that's really what the LSAT is about, and really what law school is about too, is separating the wheat from the chaff. It's issue spotting and it's focusing and it's not wasting time, because time is valuable, on all of the extraneous information. So really that's kind of going to be my focus today throughout all of this is, what do we know? What don't we know? What's important? What's not important? My journey through the LSAT, I took it twice. I'm actually proud I took it twice. I wanted to go to the University of Washington, where I went for undergrad. They're very picky about taking their undergrads. They didn't take me, but I wanted to punch up my application, give it a shot. So I took the LSAT again, and the second time I took it, I think was the more instructive, because what I did was I focused on the things that I wasn't good at, and I've always been a natural at the reading comprehension. I can kind of focus on that, figure it out, get it done. But the logic problems are difficult. They take some time, they take some reasoning through, and doing that reasoning quickly was what was tripping me up. And so I'd get through the end of the section and I'd have a whole problem left, a whole 6 questions left that I hadn't even touched. And so I had to practice that. And I looked through the materials and I practiced all the test taking strategies too, reading the whole thing, figuring out what to spend your time, but really practicing the logic problems, getting faster at them, and strategy, setting myself up for knowing I wasn't going to have enough time and maximizing my points anyway, really was what did it for me. And that's what I did. I made some educated guesses on that second attempt. I got down to that last problem with very little time left, but I had enough left that I was able to make reasoned decisions. And the ones that I couldn't spend as much time on, or almost any time at all on, I got lucky on a couple of them. And that's what standardized test prep is about. There's a little bit of luck in every test, and you have to set yourself up. You have to play to win to take advantage of that luck. And so it's what I did, and it's what got me the 170. And, I got a great scholarship to a school that I loved. I went to Lewis and Clark in Portland, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So, really, I think it's an important test, and, you can stress about it a lot, but really you need to just focus on what's important to you and what you need to learn. So those are my tips. You asked for some tips. Focus on the relevant information. Beyond focusing on the relevant information, hone your studying strategies. If hard work is one of the most important things in our field, but if you're working hard on something that isn't helping, what's the point? So you have to figure out what is helping, what's important to you, and do it, and do it a lot. And so that's my third tip, was once you know what you're good at and what you're not, just like on the test, focus on the thing you need to spend the time on. Get the other stuff done, focus on the thing you need to spend the time on, and practice, practice, practice. I don't just say that to be cliche. It's not just about getting better, it's about getting comfortable. I think that we don't acknowledge our own anxieties. The legal profession is cutthroat, at least the darker sides of it, and showing weakness is seen as this terrible thing, but I think we have to admit our weaknesses, at least to ourselves. And test anxiety is one of those weaknesses. People sitting down to take that test might lose valuable seconds because their mind blanks. And so really, I think that it's important to get comfortable and practicing in a test-like scenario over and over and over again, so that you have the habit, so that when you sit down, you just go, just without thinking about it. That's the most important thing. Things like flying, things that we do in our everyday lives that seem dangerous, we get comfortable with because we do them enough times and don't die doing them. And you need to trick your brain into believing you're not going to die when you sit down there to take that test. And once you do that, you'll be able to spend all your time on the things that are important. You also asked what animal I identify with, and this is going to seem a little weird, but for me, it's a goat. I think goats are very emblematic of lawyers. Sometimes we butt heads for dominance, but we're a very useful animal. We don't have the best reputation, but we're a very useful animal. People have been trading goats for years. People will always need lawyers. And, we're cleverer than you think, and we'll eat anything. We want to learn everything. We want to help everyone. And sometimes we climb out on those little ledges, and generally we're the ones that don't fall. So, it may seem like an odd animal, but I think it's a good one that really says a lot about lawyers. As to the problem, so I'm going to take you through the first of the two problems that you presented. A few tips in general. First, you want to read the whole question. You want to use your time efficiently. And I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. You want to go through and separate what's important. And you can't do that unless you've read the whole thing. Sometimes you want to read the whole section so you know where you want to spend your time. This is a relatively short problem, so it doesn't take you long to skim through it. And you can figure out whether you need to diagram it, how much of a breakdown you're going to need to do, or whether you can answer it quickly. So I'm going to do first is I'm going to read the question. Seems a little weird to stand here in front of a camera, read a question verbatim, but I think that the students aren't going to get a chance to read it out loud. And the emphasis can be really important for communication. And so they're going to need to know how to do that themselves in their head. And so I think it's important to read the questions out loud. And this is a short one, so it's not that big a deal. So forgive me if I'm breaking eye contact here, but I think that it's important. So this summer, Jennifer, who has worked at KVZ Manufacturing for just over 3 years, plans to spend with her family the entire 4 weeks of paid vacation to which she is entitled this year. Anyone who has worked at KVZ Manufacturing for between 1 and 4 years is automatically entitled to exactly 3 weeks paid vacation each year, but can apply up to half of any vacation time that remains unused at the end of 1 year to the next year's vacation. If the statements above are all true, which one of the following must also be true on the basis of that? I think that's the most important line. It tells us what we're looking at here. We're looking at what has to be true, the best answer. Information that might be true or is likely isn't going to help us. So what are those statements? I'm going to draw a diagram here as well, but let's break down those statements first. So what are the things that we know? First, we know that Jennifer's in her 4th year of work. Now that's important. She's worked more than 3 years. She has 4 weeks of vacation this year for certain, so we know she's carried some over. She earns 3 of those weeks automatically, and she can apply half of her unused time from the previous year. So that's quite a lot of information, and that's a lot to work with, and it'll help us answer the question pretty easily. Now the diagram I want to show is very simple. It's just vacation earned because it's going to come up, not vacation spent or anything like that, by year. So first year, we don't know how much she earned. And we don't know because what it tells us is that people who have worked there from 1 to 4 years. Well, we don't know what people who have only worked there part of a year have earned, so we don't know about that. Second year, we know she earned 3. Third year, we know she earned 3. Fourth year, we know she will earn and spend 3. Fifth year, she's been working there no longer between 1 and 4 years. She's been there more than 4 years. So we don't know. And that's also going to come up in one of the answers. Very simple diagram. Sometimes that helps people who think more visually. I think that that's something that you may not need to diagram a problem like this. It may be a waste of time for you, but some people need that visual, and it's going to be important to the answers to think about those facts. And if you can lay them out quickly and easily like that, then it may save you time later. So let's go through the answers. I didn't read them first because I want to take us through them in more detail, but I probably would have skimmed through them first before kind of looking at the whole problem if I were doing the problem myself. So the first problem, or the first answer rather, is Jennifer did not use 2 weeks of the paid vacation time to which she was entitled last year. So let's look at that. We know she had at least 3 weeks in her 3rd year, at least, meaning she could have carried some over from the prior year. But we know she's entitled to exactly 4 weeks this year, which means that there were 2 weeks unused that she was able to transfer over. this would allow her to transfer the 1 week. We know that's the answer because it's the only one here that could be the answer. Now there are some potential for, looking back at the question, it says that they can transfer up to half of any vacation time that remains. So it's possible that she potentially had more than the 2 weeks remaining if she had carried some over. But let's go back and read the answer again, which is that she did not use 2 weeks of the paid vacation. It doesn't say she didn't use more than that. It just means she did not use at least 2 weeks. So that's a dead end. We don't need to worry about that. This is the answer. Now you come up to the dilemma. Do you move on? And I'm going to pause here for a minute because I think it's an important question. You seem pretty certain you can move on, but these questions are designed to trip you up. I would almost always recommend that you go through the other answers and at least look at them and eliminate them, unlike in other standardized tests and unlike on one of the reading comprehension sections. However, if you're pressed for time, if you're pretty certain about this and you know that this is an area where you need to save a few seconds, need to save a few minutes, by all means, move on. It's an opportunity to do that. Whenever the answer is A, it's an opportunity to do that. But I'm certainly going to take you through the rest of them and why they're not the answer. And if you have the time, you certainly should, I think, at least briefly. So let's look at B. B is, if Jennifer continues to work for KVZ Manufacturing, she will only be entitled to 3 weeks paid vacation next year. So this comes back to the diagram, right? 5th year, we don't know, right? We know that she's out, right? We know she's out. She's spending all 4 of her weeks. So if she earns 3 weeks next year, that's all she's going to get. But we don't know that, so we can't say that. So that's not the answer. C is a red herring. You can tell it pretty easily. The majority of KVZ's employees use each year all of the paid vacation time to which they are entitled. Well, maybe. But words, qualitative words, estimate words, statistics words like majority are a pretty good clue that we don't know. That may be the case, it may not, but there's nothing in this question that indicates that. So we can just move on. You would discard that answer almost instantly while you're reading the test and while you're working on the test. D is another one that might be true. Last year, Jennifer took only 1 week of paid vacation time to which she was entitled. Well, if she didn't carry any over from her second year, that's true. But we know she earned 3 from the diagram. We know she earned 3 in her second year, so she could have had more and she could have used more. She could have kept only those 2 weeks. So we don't know that. It's actually probably pretty likely to be true, but we have no idea. We can't say that it's definitely true. So we have to check that one off. E is another red herring, and not only is it a red herring, but it undermines the entire principle of the question, and I think it illustrates a good point. So KVC Manufacturing sometimes allows extra vacation time to employees who need to spend more time with their families. Well, if I were a practicing attorney talking to someone about this in some sort of tax context or something like that, that might be the first question I ask them. Did your employer give you a windfall benefit? But that's a special case, it's an exception, and there is no way we can possibly know that, and there's nobody we can ask, because we only have the paragraph and the answers. That's our only source material here. So really, we don't know, we can't know, and if you're taking the LSAT, you can still be sidetracked by that kind of detail, by saying, what if this, what if that? I'm not going to say you're in the wrong place, but you're going to need to readjust your head pretty quickly, because these things, I remember in law school on the first day of orientation, one of the things they said to us is, if you're not okay with ambiguity, you're in the wrong place. Well, that's true, but also if you can't close systems, if you can't look at something in context and ignore, hey, what if this might, what if this maybe, you're not going to get very far on a lot of these answers. So that brings us back around to the beginning. I'm not going to spend any more time on the problem because I think it's pretty straightforward. But really, with the logic problems and the reading comprehension, it's all about separating the wheat from the chaff. I'm not going to say that too many more times, but issue spotting, issue spotting, issue spotting, and that's what you're going to deal with in law school, and that's what you're going to deal with in practice, and that's why this is a good test for students going to law school. It seems like a standardized test. It seems like things you've been doing since 4th grade, but it's not. It's a very good indicator of who's going to be a good lawyer and who's going to do well in law school, because it teaches you that you have to issue spot. And in law school, you're briefing cases, you have massive workload, and you're going to be asked questions via Socratic method that are on point. And if you spend all your time with your head in the clouds reading about, reading the footnotes, that's great if you're a super genius and have all the time in the world, but you still have to know what the professor's going to ask you. And you have to be able to take a 20-30 page case written by Justice Justice Marbury or somebody like that ages ago, and translate it into half a page or less. And that's what's important to be able to do. And then when you get into practice, you may have to take 2,000 pages of medical records and distill them into a brief that's 2 to 3 pages long for a judge. And it may sound impossible, but it's really not. You just have to learn what's important. And for the LSAT, you also have to learn what's important. Speed seems like your enemy in these questions because they're so tricky, but you'll get better, you'll get faster. And in the end, it's efficiency and not speed that's important. If something's going to take you time and you know it, you just got to find that time elsewhere. You got to cut it elsewhere. And that's the strategy that preparing for the LSAT is about. And, I think that's the strategy that I bring as far as having had the experience of both law school and practice, as I'm sure most of your instructors have. But, I feel like that's the experience I bring, talking to diverse, neurotypes, diverse learners, and getting them to understand concepts that, they normally just pay us to handle, right? But, if you're going to go before a judge, you have to know. And if you're going to sit down and take a test, you have to know. Law school finals are usually your entire grade, and they're issue spotting. So I think that I can provide that, and also I can provide guidance. I think it would be rewarding to provide guidance to students who are starting out. And I really hope to get to do that, and I hope to get to meet all of you. I really appreciate this chance to showcase my skills and what I know and what I can do, and I really hope to learn a lot more about that from you. I'm starting with some obvious legal experience and some experience in front of decision makers, but not a lot as a teacher in a scholastic setting. So I think there's definitely a lot I can learn from all of you, and I hope to get to do so soon. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to meeting you all.